Welcome to the 154th session of Legal Empowerment Through Interaction lecture series. The journey continues. Today we have a wonderful speaker, thanks to Premraj, and of course we later knew that he is also closely known to my good friend Biju also. We have Dr. Lisa P. Lucas. She'll be speaking on the topic, the growing importance of geographical indications as intellectual property. Now, we are privileged with the presence of Justice Ramkumar sir, Justice K. Ramushan sir, and all of you wonderful participants. So, to introduce the topic, let me request you, please.
Hello, good evening, all. So it's a great pleasure to be. So, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a great pleasure to be here on this platform today. I would like to thank Shyam Patman Associates and its principal, Mr. Shyam Patman, for inviting me to this session on a topic which is, of course, very close to my heart. I also use this opportunity to congratulate Shyam and his team for organizing this, this online knowledge sharing, this program continuously for so many months. That too with participation of so many eminent people from across the country. So it's a great event. So I don't think that anybody else is organizing such a program continuously on various topics like this. So it's a really commendable effort from Mrs. Shyam Patman. So as regards our this today's topic, the growing importance of geographical indications as an intellectual property. You know that this is not a very widely discussed intellectual property area of intellectual property like patent or trademark or design or this kind of very well-known, quite well-known intellectual properties. So the main reason may be because this geographical indication was a relatively new entrant to the spectrum of intellectual property rights in India. So although this geographical indications, the terms or this tax have been, very widely or commonly used by the people in India for quite some time, maybe or may not be knowing its significance or its realizing that this is a tag which having so many or which entail so many or significant intellectual property rights or enforceable legal rights. So we very commonly we use the Scotch whiskey, Swiss watches, Kanjivaram saris, Banaras saris, Darjeeling tea. So many these kind of terms. We are all very familiar with these kind of terms. So we use that. We consume some of this. But also these terms has a lot of it's involved a lot of important legal rights. More than a tag or a name, it is a very tags which involves so many important legal rights. So although these terms have been widely being used, it was formally recognized only relatively recently. So we know that after our India's accession to the TRIPS, we have enacted this geographical indications act as well as geographical indication rules, and it was enforced from 2003 to be precise on September 15, 2003. And geographical indications we can very define it very simply as a indication identify a good originating from a particular defined geographical area and having a particular characteristics or particular qualities or reputation. So this is the most simple definition that can be given to the term geographical indication. So this is, I mean, a product coming from a particular geographical area, and at the same time having a particular any special quality or characteristics or a reputation. So this is, I mean, we know that from Kerala itself, we have so many, I mean, geographical indications like Aranmula Metal Mirror, Aranmula Kannadi, Balaramapuram sarees, so many other agriculture products. I mean, this Palakkad and Matta, or this from the our high range area, some Alam. So this, I mean, cardamom. So many products we have. So this, I mean, products are, you know, this quality or this its characteristics have been developed by people over a period or through so many generations. So many indigenous knowledges of this community or the people have been, you know, introduced into this. I mean, the development of this products, whether it is an agricultural product or as a craft or any other product. So this actually, it's a product of this community, it's a society. This society as a whole, or this, I mean, the producers and the, I mean, people over so many generations involved in the production of this have created this, I mean, this product. That they are behind the creation of this geographical intellectual property. So that is the reason why this geographical indication is very significantly different from all other intellectual property rights. We know that all other intellectual property rights are individual rights, personal rights. So any person can, you know, who create that intellectual property can register in its name and he can enjoy its benefits. Whether it is a patent, trademark, license, they are all private rights and individual rights. So at the same time, this, on the other hand, this geographical indication is a community right. An individual cannot register this or possess this right as a personal right or individual right. It only the association of producers or a body which is formed to protect the interest of the producers only can register this geographical indication as an intellectual property. So that is a significant difference of geographical indication from other intellectual property rights. So this is a community right. This is a right of the society as a whole. So no individual has any special claim over that. So all the producers have equal rights. So this is the this is how it is different. And so I mean, we know that most of these geographical indications are, I mean, in India's case, we can see, I mean, say that most of maybe 80 to 90% of this geographic indications originate from the rural areas. So rural, this is a rural, I mean, this is the property of this rural, I mean, populations, and this most of these are coming from the rural, I mean, farmers or the craftsmen who are living in this, I mean, rural background. So this geographic indication helps a lot. So that is the main reason of, I mean, this that government is giving a lot of importance for this protection, and they're giving a lot of, I mean, financial assistance and all for the protection of this geographic indications and this for, you know, enforcement of geographic indication, etc. Because this helps a lot for to the rural populations, the rural community for their economic development. Also, as I said earlier, this also, I mean, helps the, I mean, to protect or preserve this our indigenous traditional knowledge to a certain extent. So all of this, most of these geographical indications involve a lot of traditional knowledge and very, I mean, unique, I mean, know-hows. Just like, I mean, we know that Aranmula Kannadi, Aranmula Metal Mirror is having a very unique technology, which is not known to anyone else because it is very, very unique. Only those people, I mean, from that particular Aranmula area only can produce that mirror with that quality. So that is a significance. So they only know that the know-how. So they, I mean, transfer this know-how, I mean, from generation to generation. And this for so many, I mean, it has been there for, I think, last 300 or 400 years. So that was came to this present time through so many generations. So this also helps to this kind of traditional knowledges and indigenous knowledge. And also this, I mean, this, a study. I mean, I have recently, I mean, come across a study which shows that this is the recent, this registration we have started in the first geographical indication in India was, that registered in 2004. 2004, the first geographical indication registered in India was Darjeeling tea. That is in 2004, January or February. So that is the first geographical indication. So from that point now, I think we have more than nearly 600 or so geographical indication registered in India. So various parts of India. I'm not saying that all of them are huge, economic success or, all of them have a very great success story. But some of them have, like Darjeeling tea, we know that it is a international because we call it as India's champagne. So Darjeeling tea, also this Assam tea, Nilgiri teas, these teas, we have so many varieties of teas. And Basmati is one of our most, prestigious geographical indication. But unfortunately, the Basmati rice is not at registered in India due to so many, disputes between the stakeholders and all. Similarly, so many, agricultural products, so many crafts like Kanjivaram, Banaras, all of this, are registered. So the registration gives them the, actually basically it is a marketing tool. So through this registration, they can, market these products in a better way, or this as a tag. This geographical tag can be used as a tag for better marketing. And some of them have, succeeded in, reaping more benefit out of this geographical registration and this, geographical indication tag. But some of them they couldn't do so because, as I said earlier, because most of these products are from the rural, from the rural area, rural locations. So they don't have this bandwidth to, market in a better way without government support or without proper professional helps and all. We can't expect them to do wonders. But in the case of, this Darjeeling tea and other teas, brands have a great support of the tea board. So they are doing this, all they internationally mark. They are fighting, cases all over the world against their, infringements and all. So they have a, big coffers, and so they can easily, enforce and easily mark. And the producers also, they get a better benefit. But many of I must say that most of these registered, GIs, they don't have a great story to tell. But of course, it is great potential. It is great potential to be, a driving force of India's rural economy. So I think from that point itself, the more attention from this government authorities and also be, given to them. And as far as case laws are concerned, I don't think many, this, because not tested, before this, India's courts much. I think only a few cases are there. Most of them are, at the major part of. So, most of the case laws are, in India is, connected with, Scotch Whisky Association. I think Lisa will tell in detail about that. And the latest one, as far as I know, is by Tea Board filed against ITC. Against their Calcutta-based hotel, where there was a lounge by the name Darjeeling Lounge. So against which this Tea Board had filed a suit saying that it is infringing the geographical indication Darjeeling. But this High Court, they didn't say that. They say that this has nothing to do with this tea, and it is not. It's not an infringement, and it's not creating any confusion. They are using only with respect to a particular lounge, and they are not serving any tea, or it is nothing to connect this tea with that particular name. So that was finally ITC couldn't succeed in that case. So that is there are very few case laws in India from this for with respect to J Act. So I think Lisa will discuss those case laws in detail. It's once again, I'm very happy to be here and say a few words about this topic, geographical indication today. And I'm also eager to hear more about this in detail from Lisa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Biju. That was indeed wonderful, even though there was some interruption in between, but thank you for, now the stage is set for Dr. Lisa to make a presentation, please.
A very good evening to everyone. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I consider this as a great privilege to be a part of this elite group, a galaxy of intellectuals, honorable judges, respected lawyers, and my dear academicians. The topic that I will be dealing is the growing importance of geographical indication. Can I have the permission to share my screen? I have a
Sure. You can. I'll just enable that. It's done. You can share it.
Thank you. So I will be dealing with geographical indication and exactly the growing importance of geographical indication as intellectual property. Biju has given sufficient introduction to the topic, so I may not be dealing with the introductory part. I'm directly going to the subject itself. As we know, the TRIPS agreement, intellectual property aspects of the trade-related aspects of intellectual property agreement 1994, which is a part of a WTO agreement. TRIPS agreement dealing with the protection, how you can acquire intellectual property, how you can maintain the protection, and how you can enforce the intellectual property in case of any infringement, and which also defines the scope of intellectual property as a subject matter. So we can take as the most enforceable international law on intellectual property. So the TRIPS agreement, as many of you might be knowing, define or consider 7 kinds of intellectual property as the candidates that can be accommodated under the umbrella of intellectual property. And the 7 subject matters or the 7 kinds of intellectual property that is to be protected internationally, because since I told you the TRIPS agreement is an enforceable agreement, it is an obligation on the member countries that these intellectual properties should be protected. There is no excuse that a member country can take. We have to be obliged to protect it. So the 7 kinds of intellectual property that the TRIPS considers to be worth protectable are patents, trademarks, copyright, geographical indications, industrial designs, integrated circuits, and undisclosed information. So usually we use the nomenclature trade secrets when we deal with the undisclosed information. As Mr. Biju himself said in the introduction, the kinds of intellectual properties like a patent, trademark, or copyright are very famous, very popular, and even in remote areas, there are people who have heard about patents, trademark, and copyright. And many times we see even newspaper articles carrying much information on a copyright infringement or plagiarism or trademark patents, as the case may be. But when we come to the area of geographical indication, most of the time, even people do not know what is meant by geographical indication. And I have seen even celebrated academicians using the very nomenclature wrongly as geographical indicator. So this itself shows that, and I was reading an editorial from a famous newspaper also, wherein the nomenclature itself was used as geographical indicator. So this itself shows that the lack of awareness is there among Indians with respect to the geographical indication as a kind of intellectual property, its scope, its content, and what are its potentials in terms of economic development. So I thought of speaking about this geographical indication, since as Biju sir also said, it is a topic that is close to my heart. I will just share the logo and the slogan that is officially recognized and approved by the Government of India for geographical indication. So the slogan is Invaluable Treasures of Incredible India. So this means a lot. And in the introduction itself, Biju sir told that yes, these are treasures which are maintained by generations for years, even might be for centuries. So he has tried to connect this particular process even with the indigenous people and traditional knowledge. So we know that when we talk about the indigenous knowledge and traditional knowledge, though this is not the same and we can find differences legally speaking between indigenous knowledge and traditional knowledge, we know that as far as the intellectual property law stands today, traditional knowledge or indigenous knowledge is not considered a part of intellectual property. Though on the other hand, many kind of intellectual property like a patent was used to misappropriate traditional knowledge. So I may not speak much about the famous Neem case, the famous turmeric case, wherein our traditional knowledge was misappropriated by way of foreign patents. But still, when we look at the slogan as invaluable treasures of incredible India, that itself gives us the insight that it has got a lot of history to talk about, because there are people who work to maintain the quality, the characteristics, and who maintain these characteristics and quality of the product, and also to enhance the reputation, to gain the reputation and enhance the reputation of a particular product that is belonging to a region. So it's definitely an invaluable treasure. We cannot measure it, actually what will be the value of it, and we cannot even identify who all are the contributors who contributed through generations, through generations and through centuries to maintain the quality and other characteristics and to gain the reputation. So when let's just look at what is geographical indication, though in introductory part, Dr. Advocate Biju talked about it. So it is a distinct and unique kind of intellectual property right. Why I wanted to emphasize on this particular aspect is, we know that till 1995, and the importance of the year 1995 is that 1st January 1995, the TRIPS agreement comes into force. India had to enforce the TRIPS agreement in letter and spirit, though it was a transition period of India, and India got another 10 years till 2005 to bring into conformity all its laws. But still, we know that in 1995 it comes into force. And it is for the first time that a TRIPS agreement vehemently said that geographical indication should be considered as a distinct kind of intellectual property right. Till then, even when we see the Indian history, we can see that we could register geographical indication as a trademark. So the way to protect a geographical indication was to register it as a trademark, like for example, a community trademark. Of course, in India, we don't have the concept of community trademark, but when we look at the international history, we can say that there are a lot of examples wherein trademark was registered as geographical indications were registered as a community trademark. We could do that because there was no law which specifically said geographical indication should be considered as a distinct kind of intellectual property. But in 1995, the TRIPS agreement said that there should be special laws and geographical indication should not be misappropriated by way of any other kind of intellectual property right. So generally speaking, it is an indication, as the name itself indicates, or it is self-explanatory. It is an indication, or it can be sign used on products. When we look at the trademark, there we can see that it can be on services or it can be on products. So goods and services are taken care of by the Trademarks Act. But when we look into the geographical indication, as of now, we consider only the products as eligible subject matters wherein a geographical indication can be applied. So that's why I said it is an indication on product. And the product, what is the specialty of this product? Can we use geographical indication on any product? No, we cannot use it on any product. The product should have a specific geographical origin and possess qualities or reputation that are due to that particular region. So from this particular definition itself, we can identify that the product has got a connection, it has got a link, it has got a bond between the locality, between the region, or between the territory or the place where it is where it is originated. So a link between the product and the place. That is something that is very important when we talk about geographical indication. And this particular link is not mandatory when we talk about a particular trademark. And as we could hear in the introductory talk, it represents the collective goodwill. So in one of the article, I was reading that geographical indication in that way can be considered as poor man's intellectual property. What might have prompted the author to call it as poor man's intellectual property? Because you know that acquiring a patent itself involves a matter of millions of dollars. Think about a pharmaceutical drug. Now we are hearing a lot about vaccines that is for COVID. So a lot of discussions are taking place. How we have to bring a balance between the public health issues and the patent issues when we talk about the vaccines for COVID. So because the millions and millions of dollars will be invested in the drug discovery process, for example, not only with respect to drug patent, with respect to any patent, let us take as example, because in the R&D process itself, we have to invest millions and millions of rupees without any guarantee that the R&D will be successful. Because there is no guarantee that the inventor will come out with a successful product or a successful molecule. So, but still, the people are ready to take the risk of investment, the risk of R&D, by hoping that if they come out with a successful molecule or come out with a successful product or an invention, of course, there will be a guaranteed protection, and the term of 20-year protection will give them sufficient time to recoup the investment so that they can benefit and they can be compensated. So actually, without money, you cannot think about getting into a patent business, getting into inventions, getting into R&D. So look at the other intellectual properties. Even when we take the example of copyright, we can say that earlier it was not considered as a part of industrial property. When we talk about the Paris Convention for Industrial Property, that time the very term intellectual property was not coined in 1883. So they called it as industrial property. And industrial property included patents, trademark, designs, etc., etc. Copyright was not mentioned. Copyright was not a candidate in Paris Convention because it was not considered as an industry by that particular time, because mostly people wrote for fame and reputation. So they could not find an industry. But now, in the passage of time, just look at the copyright. You have publishing industry, you have music industry, you have entertainment industry. In copyright itself, we can find multiple industries. So everything is business, everything is money making, everything is a game for money. So, but when we think about geographical indication, see, it can be, we may be talking about poor farmers, we may be talking about poor artisans, for example. So here you can find that if a single person goes to apply to geographical registry to get a geographical indication, it is not possible. There should be association of people. There should be group of people coming together who share a common interest. They may be, for example, when we take the example of Basmati, they all are farmers or cultivators of Basmati, as the case may be. So there should be group of people, there should be an association. And the association should represent the collective will of the people. So that's why it represents the collective goodwill of people. And this is one of the differences that we can find with respect to geographical indication and with respect to other kind of intellectual property rights. So it informs consumers of the uniqueness of the products derived from this connection. So the famous geographical indication that all of you might be knowing, Basmati rice, Alfonso mango, Kanchipuram sari, Navara rice, etc., etc. And when we look at the characteristics, we can see that the quality, reputation, it should be essentially attributable to its geographical origin. Because, see, I talked about Basmati rice. We know that Basmati rice is grown in Delhi, Punjab, or Haryana, even in Pakistan area, as the case may be. Because geoclimatic situation of this particular, geoclimatic conditions of this place is something very peculiar. If we take certain grains of Basmati and go to South India and we try to plant in Kanyakumari or Trivandrum side, as the case may be, of course, we will not get the same quality product because there you do not have the same climatic conditions, the soil conditions, etc. are different. So in that particular condition, you will not get the same attributes of the Basmati rice, which in northern side of India, the people cultivate. So the quality of the product is attributable to its geographical origin. So the legal protection for any product as geographical indication is based on the recognition of the association of their quality or characteristics with a specific geographical area. And as I told you, another difference that we can make here with respect to trademark and geographical indication is that a geographical indication is applicable only with respect to goods. So in the spectrum of trade, development, culture, and the marketing, GI thus plays a very crucial role. And as I have already told you, it has closely linked with the traditional knowledge, the indigenous knowledge and culture and nature of a particular place. I will, this slide is talking about the international legal framework. I am not explaining much about it. It's just to give you some sort of information. If in the group we have, if anyone who might not be knowing about the international legal position, so I just wanted to give some basic information regarding what are the international legal instruments talking about the protection of geographical indication. As I told you, in 1883, the very first International Intellectual Property Convention, so that time it was not known by the very term intellectual property. So the Paris Convention for the Protection of Industrial Property in 1883. Of course, when we start reading the document, the convention, we cannot find a terminology, geographical indication there. But it's talking about appellation of origin. So appellation of origin, indication of source, and geographical indications, in many places people use interchangeably, though it is not one and the same. There are differences. But at the same time, the very term appellation of origin, you can find in articles 10.1, 10.2, 10 bis, 10 ter, etc., etc., in the Paris Convention. So giving a strong hint that even in 1883, the people were overwhelming to protect geographical indication. Then we have Madrid Agreement for the repression of false and deceptive indications of source of goods. And you have a TRESA Convention. Of course, there are not many member countries who are signatories to this TRESA Convention because it is primarily talking about appellation of origin and the denomination of cheese. And every country is not cheese producing countries. So those who are interested are those who have their own concern. They became members of TRESA Convention. And then we have Lisbon system. Of course, the Lisbon system is very important because Lisbon Agreement for the protection of appellation of origin and their international registration is there. It is also with the Geneva Act of Lisbon Agreement, and we also have common regulations under the Lisbon Agreement, which is passed in the year 2018, and also administrative instructions on Lisbon Agreement, which is from 2020, February 26. And lastly, it is the TRIPS Agreement 1994, wherein I said the most powerful and enforceable treaty in the regime of intellectual property, and wherein we cannot have any pick and choose. If you want to become a part of WTO, the entire WTO package agreement you have to sign. What is suitable for you, you cannot choose, and then you cannot avoid what is not suitable for you. So that time, if you recall, you can see that there were lots of academic debates took place, political and legal debates took place, whether India should be a party or not. But of course, without any second thought, most of the thinkers and leaders said, no, we have to be, because India cannot be an island where the entire international community is going for globalization and they become part of WTO. So of course, we also had no other way, but we had to sign WTO. And in that process, we had to become a member of TRIPS agreement. And in that process, we had to make our own law on geographical indication, though we were not having any law till 1994. So when we look at the international aspect again, you can say that the recognition of geographical indication, though that time they may not be calling it as geographical indication itself. So you can see the Scotch whiskey, Dhaka muslin, Kashmiri carpet, Chinese clay pot, Malabar pepper. So we all know about all this, though we may not be connecting every time it with a geographical indication word, but we know that there is some connection between these products and the place of origin. So if you take some pepper stem and you want to cultivate it in any other place, that it may not give the same result, the same spices, the same qualities, the same taste when it grows in Malabar soil, because the Malabar pepper has got its own distinctiveness, its own specialities. So you can see that even I told you about appellation of origin from 1883 Paris Convention, wherein a connection was established between the product and its place of origin. So when we study the history from 1883 Paris Convention to 1994 TRIPS Agreement, you can see that there is a conceptual shift a paradigm shift that took place in the very fundamentals of geographical indication, in the very notion of geographical indication, wherein from link between product and place, the shift took place from a link not only between the place and the product, but also on reputation and quality. So, conceptually speaking, this particular shift is very evident when we read the definition of a geographical indication in the TRIPS agreement and the further academic reading that we have, which should be accompanied with the legal text of TRIPS agreement. So you can see that, as I told you, in the pre-TRIPS regime, it was the community trademark or by way of consumer protection law or by trademark law, the people used to protect geographical indication. But in the post-TRIPS era, there is no other way, there is no other alternative, but every country needs to have its own specific legislation for the protection of geographical indication. So in the same lines with the Patent Act 1970 or Copyright Act 1957, India had to enact a specific legislation dealing with the content and the scope, the enforcement provisions, registration provisions, etc. of the geographical indication. So in 1999, the Geographical Indication of Goods and Registration and Protection Act came into existence. The act was passed. And I told you why it did not come in the year 1995 itself, because being a developing country, India got 10-year transition period. So from 1994 or from 1995 to 2005, we could do all our homework, all our preparatory work, wherein there can be a complete shift from pre-TRIPS regime to post-TRIPS regime in IPR terms. So we got that 10-year period. So in between, we had that act in the year 1999 and the rules were framed in the year 2002. And of course, you can see specific mentioning about the geographical indication, and also the government talks about the government's duty to create awareness, etc. When we look at the National Intellectual Policy of 2016, another initiative of the government. And when we look at the rationale or the philosophy of protection of geographical indication, there are many arguments that the people make. There are it's the legal arguments. The legal arguments, of course, as lawyers or as honorable judges, I need not emphasize much on the legal arguments, because the moment a legal right is not created, of course, you will find a difficulty to enforce it. If something is not a legally enforceable right, there will be difficulties to enforce it, and all possibilities for the counterfeiters to counterfeit and misappropriate it. So when you legally recognize geographical indication as a protectable subject matter, then of course there will be more enthusiasm among the producers to assure a legal right, and the very certificate itself gives them prima facie evidence that they are only the person entitled and authorized by law to use it. And if anybody else does it, that will be treated as an infringement of the right. And same with the moral argument, because as we could see, with respect to Basmati, we haven't contributed anything. It is those farmers who have worked decades together or centuries together to maintain the quality and characteristics of the Basmati rice, and maintain the quality and characteristics of the soil, and also to protect the environment, because there are many things that is that will come together when we talk about producing a product or maintaining the quality. Say, for example, with respect to handicraft, etc., etc. The skill, not only the skill and knowledge, of course, the gift of the nature is also involved here. So there is no moral justification when somebody misappropriates it. So somebody produces a similar or product which is akin to the former one, and then you say that it is my product. For example, Kanchipuram sari. There are many people who weave Kanchipuram even outside the place Kanchipuram, and they market it as Kanchipuram sari. Or it can be with a Mysore sari, or it can be even with respect to Alfonso mango, or even it can be with respect to Basmati rice as well. So they just produce anywhere else and a lower quality product, and they market it as if it is the genuine product, and they take the advantage and they take the goodwill, they make use of the goodwill of the product. So there is no moral justification why can't this be protected, and it should be protected, and the violator should be punished in that way. And all these things attributes to the culture. And we know when we go by the cultural theory of intellectual property protection, especially this theory is very much important when we talk about copyright law. So we can say that these are adding to the culture of a society. So the cultural argument, economic argument. So you have to look at the European Union to see how the countries like Europe and France, how they are benefiting from the protection of geographical indication economically. Of course, their government worked a lot to create awareness, to bring together the producers and to market internationally their products, and also to take timely action against infringement. So the cooperation of government, the cooperation of enforcement authority, all these are very much remarkable when we talk about the economic argument. The poor farmers or the poor producers cannot themselves do it. And the social welfare argument. So Ms. Viju was talking that almost 80 to 90% of Indian registered geographical indications belong to rural areas of our country. See, the real soul you find in village, you find in rural area. So that's why I told you this is a poor man's property. This is a collective property wherein the poor farmers, poor producers, they associate themselves and they bargain collectively for their rights. So this actually, if there is a certain initiative from the government to give more teeth to their argument, to support their initiative, of course, it will lead to the social welfarement of this community. In same way, equity conservation, conservation and concerns, and the rural development arguments. So these are the main justifications, main rationales that we have to quote as why there should be protection for geographical indication. And it not only protects producers' interests. As I told, it is a unique bond of man and nature. So in a way, you protect environment. In a way, you advocate for sustainable development when we talk about the protection of geographical indication. So in the same way, it protects the consumers. So now, though I belong to Kerala, I work in Delhi. So here I can say that there is a famous market, Chandni Chowk. Those who are not staying in Delhi also, you all might have heard about Chandni Chowk, wherein you go and get everything except your father and mother. So you can see that you can order anything there. So I want Malabar pepper, or I want Kanchipuram sari, I want Alfonso Manga. Anything will be available, but none of these products will be genuine products, and they will be luring you like anything. You may be required to pay 5,000 or 8,000 rupees for a Kanchipuram sari, which is locally made, and it may not have anything, any connection with the Kanchipuram, except they might have copied the design or something like that. The fabric may be very bad, as the case may be. So since there is no protection for geographical indication, the consumers are lured. But if there is any mechanism that we have in India, wherein we ensure that genuine products are sold through a particular place. I will talk about that suggestions that I have later when I come to the concluding part. But of course, then consumers will not be cheated, because people really want that when they pay, they should get the quality product. If you get the quality product, if you get the genuine product, people don't mind to pay. We are ready to pay, but we should be assured that we are getting the genuine product. We are not getting something fake thing. So but now there is no mechanism to ensure that there is value for what you pay, and it will protect the national interest. So it's not only for the producers and the consumers, it's for the country. As I told you, the example of European country, the example of France, whereas immensely and hugely they are getting benefits economically from the geographical indication by the sale of genuine geographical indication products. So in that way, geographical indication can simply be defined as a national pride and a cultural patrimony. So it becomes the duty of everyone. It becomes the duty of state government. It becomes the duty of the national government to take proactive steps in protecting geographical indication. And it's very much needed to protect small scale producers. The best example what I can cite here is Pochampally Ikat. When the geographical indication was given to Pochampally Ikat, might be in the year 2004 itself, there were very less people who came as registered users. Then government even introduced a handloom park so that they should get some moral support. And lot of initiative the government has taken to bring together and also to give momentum to their bargaining power. And even the government took initiative to sell their original and genuine products. So you can say that even the annual income of the producers have grown like anything. And youngsters were not at all interested to take care of this weaving activity because it was not giving them any proper benefit. But when they found that the government is taking initiative and it has become a profitable business, the youngsters of each and every house took interest to learn this particular traditional weaving. So in that way, we can say that whenever we talk about indigenous knowledge, traditional knowledge, etc., we always find this particular problem. Youngsters are not interested. But here, the Pochampally Ikkat's successful story gives us a very evidential lesson that if there is proper income coming out of the protection of geographic indication, the youngsters, though they are educated, they also take care of their culture, they also take care of their tradition, and they come back to their work. So you can say that the benefits from the GI is employment generation, as I have told you. Even the youngsters take interest. In that way, it creates wealth to the family, to the society, to the community, to the state, and to the nation. It contributes to the GDP, and the consumers get authentic and quality products. And in a way, it directly leads to environmental protection, because if you don't want to protect the nature, the surrounding, the environment, wherein the particular product, especially when we talk about natural products and agricultural products, of course, then if you don't protect the environment, it will not maintain the same quality. Then you will lose your reputation. So the sustainable development, poverty eradication, protection of culture, entrepreneurial development, binding producers together, motivating youngsters to maintain culture and protect tradition. Because I have already explained all these points, so I am not explaining all these sub points under the head benefits of GI. So the producers, consumers, locals, state, country as a whole become beneficiary if you have a very effective mechanism to protect and promote geographical indication. And when we look at the 2000 Act, 1999 Act, which came into effect from 15 September 2003 after the 2002 rules, we have a registry for geographical indication in Chennai. And from the website, which I could see from the official website, that as of now we have a 370 products registered. And the Zorai Kowar painting handicrafts from Jharkhand being the last registered product. Of course, they might be working on so many applications. And once finally the certificate is granted, then of course it will find a place under the registered products. And anyone can visit the website of geography, official website of geographical indication, and state-wise we can find the list. So I have made a small analysis, and I could find that out of the 370 products, we have 178 handicrafts, out of which 36 handicrafts including painting, and 112 registration for agricultural products, 24 for manufacture, 18 for foodstuff, and 2 registration for the natural goods, and 14 are for the foreign products. Because though, let me take a minute to explain this foreign product aspect, because we know that in India also it is possible that foreign countries can come and register it. That is what TRIPS, because you are enabling Indians to acquire intellectual property protection in foreign countries, and also foreigners can come and protect their intellectual property in our country also. So likewise, say for example, Scotch whiskey or Champagne whiskey, as the case maybe, these all enjoy protection in India. So you have to, but since though it is, when we talk about international protection, of course the protection is territorial, and under a particular national law you have to acquire it. So there are 14 products wherein the protection is given under the Geographical Indication Act. This is the statutory definition. I am not defining much about it, but I just quickly invite your attention to 3 points here. It can be agricultural, natural, or manufactured goods. And now, agricultural goods, for example, we have, as I told you, it can be rice or natural, for example, it can be honey, manufactured goods, Kotadoria, blue handicrafts, Kotadoria, blue pottery of Jaipur, etc., etc. And another important, and with respect to manufactured goods, either any one of the activity should be taken place in that particular place: production, processing, or preparation. And another important aspect wherein I would like to invite your attention is, a GI need not be a geographical name. GI need not be a geographical name. Look at the name Basmati. There is no place like Basmati. There is no place like Alfonsa. So it can be any name. It can be any indication. It is not necessary, as in the case of appellation of origin, it is not necessary that for Champagne whiskey, of course, it is coming from the district Champagne. Scotch whiskey, it comes from Scotland. So the name itself indicates from where it comes. But when you look at Alfonsa or Basmati, it is not giving you indication in the name itself from where it belongs. And if you take the history of Basmati, we can say that more than 5 states are involved there. As I told you, it can be Delhi, UP, Punjab, Haryana, all these borders share the name Basmati, because all this place you have to, when you apply it, so you have to give the geographical map wherein the particular product is being produced. So, but one point to be remembered here is that J need not be a geographical name. It can be any indication, as in the case of Alfonso or Basmati. And as I have told you, one individual cannot apply for a registration of a geographical indication, even if a hypothetical situation I am just creating for you. Suppose, for example, there is a person XYZ who is very rich and who is giving say 200 hectares of land. 200 hectares of land, when you say geographically, it is a huge area. So of course, he can prove that in that 200 hectares of land, he has particular climatic condition, particular soil condition, or this is contributing to a particular quality of a product. But if a single person goes like this, of course, in India, the law is not permitting him to acquire a geographical indication. So most of the time, when I also think about it, it becomes a very problematic question for me. What might be the reason why legislators took this particular decision that it should be a group of persons? But of course, we haven't confronted with any such a situation as of now, wherein one individual claimed that the entire place belonging to him and the products what he produces is having a particular quality or attribution. So as of now, the law stands. So we don't know whether there can be changes because amendment process can come any time. So because in many academic discussions, this particular point has come up. So what will be the law tomorrow? I don't know. But as of today, one individual cannot acquire it. It can be an association or it can be an organization, as the case may be. And of course, then how will you get? Of course, an association gets geographical indication. And I produce, say, for example, Darjeeling tea. I belong to that particular place and I also a farmer of Darjeeling tea. Then how can I use it? Of course, if you want to use it, you have to register yourself as an authorized user. And if you are not, and the authorized user's name will be registered with the geographical indication registry. And if you are not an authorized user, then of course you cannot legally use the geographical indication. And the registration process is totally different. When we talk about the registration process of geographical indication and registration process of other intellectual property rights, because here, of course, the experts committee or the examiners will be coming. There will be an expert committee that will be appointed by the registry who will come and inspect the place. This inspection and examination is very important to see whether the claimed attributes, the claimed characteristics and the claimed reputations are there or not, because we call it as specification. Of course, the specification is totally different from the specification in the patent application what we talk about. So this whatever specifications the applicant association or the organization claims, that should be proved that by the that should be proved when the committee comes for examination, when the expert comes for examination. So we have to show the particular map, which all should be the area wherein the particular applicant say, the organization say that these are the particular area wherein we all producers belong, etc. And this after the details of the special characteristics and how those standards are maintained, and there will be a preliminary scrutiny by the examiner to find out the correctness. Then they will give an examination report, and of course, a success registration is depending on this examination report. And the remaining is same with respect to all other kinds of intellectual property rights. The Geographical Indication Journal will be publishing about this particular application. As any interested person wants to object, you can object it. Here also, I can give an example of a Pavitra Modiram. Many people coming from Kerala might have heard about Pavitra Modiram, and all of you, all of us would like to have a Pavitra Modiram because it is considered as very auspicious. And we know that there are certainly historically when we look at it, has got a lot of religious connotation, and there were pujas where it is compulsory that that particular Pavitra sign that you make with the help of a particular grass should be worn by the priest, the pujari, which we call in Malayalam, when he performs the particular puja. Okay, so that particular note, the ring with that particular note, the Pavitra ring, once it got a registration, but of course, the particular association was lacking the collective goodwill. It was criticized that there is, and one of the cases that the Kerala faced at this particular time, or one of the first cases after the coming into force of the Geographical Indication Act with respect to the Pavitra ring. So the many artisans claimed that their name is not included, and the organization which was formed, it was not actually formed by the members who are real artisans of the Pavitra ring. So India had such a sad history when the geographical indication registry decided to withdraw or cancel the registration given to Pavitra ring. So that's why I have told you objections can come at any time. During the time of registration, it can come. Or even after the registration, there can be objections if it is not genuinely representing, bona fidely representing the interest of the genuine artisan. And once it is accepted, it will be published in the GI journal, and there can be still oppositions and counter statement, and finally the registration will be granted, and all appeals will be dealt with intellectual property appellate board. And let me talk about the duration of a geographical indication also. As in the case of trademark, a geographical indication can also be, also be protected in perpetuity. And with respect to all other kind of intellectual property, there is a time limit. There is a lapse of time. For example, patent you can protect only for 20 years. Copyright, lifetime of the author plus 60 years. Design, maximum 15 years. But with respect to trademark and geographical indication, you can renew it for any number of times, provided you are continuously using it and also you are taking actions against the infringers. So, though initially for 10 years, geographical indications can be granted, it can be protected in perpetuity. This is the exam. And when I talk about the champagne, when I talk about the Scotch whiskey, etc., you can say that for centuries and centuries, these particular GIs are being protected. So once you register it, then of course it is giving you a long-term benefit. It can be protected for generations and generations, provided you take active interest in it and you maintain the quality and characteristics. And of course, there are certain geographical indications that cannot be protected at all if it is deceive or cause confusion, contrary to any law, scandalous or obscene matter, and also had religious acceptabilities if it is a generic name, and which falsely represent to the persons that the goods originate in another country. So these are the registrations that cannot be protected, geographical indications that cannot be protected. And once registered, it gives you the exclusive right to use the GI and also right to obtain relief in infringement of geographical indications. So now I will quickly take you certain geographical indications just to help you to recollect what are the famous geographical indications which India is known for. So the first registered one, Darjeeling tea. It has got the name Darjeeling plus the logo. As I told you, it can be a name, it can be a logo. The Kangra tea, the Nanchinod banana, the Coorg orange, Mysore silk, Kanchipuram sari, Chanderi sari, Kullu shawl, Chennapatna toys, Pochampally ikat, which I have shown you as one of the best examples, because in the international literature also you can find the success story of Pochampally ikat. So it is a world famous GI now. And Madhubani painting, Mysore rosewood inlay, and the state of Karnataka should be saluted because they take lot of initiative to take their products. So you can see that when you almost some 40% of the entire registered GI belong to Karnataka. And I am happy to also say that Karnataka is the only state wherein they have formulated a exclusive geographical indication policy for the state. They have appointed a nodal officer to protect the geographical indication, because as I told you, this is government property. Most of the time these poor people are illiterate. They don't know that there is something like geographical indication which is what protectable, what is the potentiality of their product, their skill, their art, they do not know. So somebody should go and tell us, you have a right, let us come together and let us go and register it and let us protect it, let us produce it in large scale and let us conquer the market. There should be someone to give them the advice. So in that way, the Kannada has shown a lot of good model to the rest of the country. What all can be done through the initiative from the government. So we have Mysore traditional painting, Mysore sandal shop, and horticultural products from Mysore itself. You see a lot of varieties you can find here. And since I belong to Kerala, let me talk something about our products itself. We have Aranmula Kannadi, as Viju sir also told, Navara rice, Palakkad and Matta rice, Malabar pepper, Alapi coir, Kerala brass broidered crafts. We can have likewise Kerala screw paint crafts, Palakkad and Maddalam, Alapi green kadabram, Pokoli rice, etc., etc. So I don't want to show you all 370 registered GI. So variety of things, as we could see the definition of goods from the Act itself. Now, let me, before I wind up, let me talk a bit about some tension that we have in international position. So I told you the TRIPS agreement, which is the Bible, Gita, and the Quran of intellectual property as of now. So what TRIPS says that it becomes the last word, because the TRIPS, when we look at even the TRIPS plus development with respect to geographical indication, there is not much development took place with respect to Article 23. So you can say that when we look at Article 23 of the TRIPS agreement, it talks about basically two types of protection. One is basic level of protection. Think about our basmati rice, think about our Darjeeling tea. So all these products will be coming under that particular basic level of protection. And in Article 22, you can see that there is additional protection for wines and spirits. And unfortunately, India is not a wine producing or spirit producing country. And of course, we know that when the negotiations take place, usually the political powers will always have an upper hand. So likewise, whether TRIPS is a legally enforceable treaty, whether it is a legal treaty, yes, it is a legal treaty. Is it a political treaty? Though academicians, we have to silently agree, yes, it is a political treaty as well. There are many non-legal factors. It can be social factors, cultural factors, and most importantly, the political factors that all become responsible to the construction in a particular way of the agreement, the terms and conditions of the agreement. So, of course, you can see that there is a number of articles and a number of books wherein you can find this particular position that I have told you. This particular double protection standard for geographical indication, one basic protection with respect to products that is available in all countries except the European and American countries, and with the higher protection for wines and spirits, which are wine and spirit producing countries. So they could win the negotiations. They could win the negotiations, and they could find that there is a clause that they could insert successfully, that they enjoy a additional and a double protection for their wines and spirits. I will explain it a little further. For example, suppose our Darjeeling tea is being misappropriated and infringed somewhere else. We have to prove that, say, for example, American style Darjeeling. Okay, somebody in America makes tea and they call it American Darjeeling. So, of course, just by using American Darjeeling, they are not doing any infringement. According to this particular Article 22, when you read Article 22 with Article 23 of the agreement, you have to additionally prove that by using it, the consumers are misled. And there is a consumer confusion or unfair competition. And this you have to prove. And how you will be proving it? Of course, it is depending on the discretion of the honorable judges who will be dealing with the case to see that by a particular usage, whether the public is misled and they are confused or there is unfair competition. So it is an additional burden on the registered geographical indication group or registered proprietor to prove that because somebody has taken advantage of your goodwill. See, they have a lot many names they can use. No, why they should use Indian basmati? You know that in US we had the case. They made 3 varieties of our basmati rice. There are cases. It's not only possibilities I am talking about. Jasmati, Kasmati, and Texmati. 3 varieties of basmati rice. There are a lot of patent issues. I'm not getting into the patent issues since it is not a talk on patent law. But when you look at the geographical indication aspect itself, why they should take names like Jasmati, Tasmati, and Kasmati? Because they want to confuse the international rice buyers. That it has got something with the internationally famous basmati. So there, this can be legally done because Article 22 and 23, when you read together, if you are not able to prove that the consumer confusion and unfair competition, it will be deemed, it will be presumed as a legitimate and legal use. And when you talk about Article 23, say each member shall provide the legal means for interested parties to prevent the use of geographical indication identifying wine for wines, not originating in the place indicated by the geographical indication in question. I'm not reading the entire article. I take you the last line which I have italicized, the kind, type, style, imitation, or the like. For example, suppose in Goa, some of our friends produce Goan style champagne. So the name itself tells you that it is not original champagne. It is made from Goa. It may give you the same sparkling effect of the champagne. The Goan style champagne or a Goan kind of scotch. No, You cannot use it. Though they can use Indian style basmati in America, they can use American style basmati, or they can use European style Alfonso, whatever. They can do, because it is not having an additional protection. It is not wines and spirits. But here, even if we clearly indicate that it is not the original campaign, it is an imitation. You write in very big letters on the packet, it is only an imitation of Scotch, it is only an imitation of champagne. No, we cannot do that, even if there is no consumer confusion, even if the public is not misled, even if there is no unfair competition. We cannot do that, because the wines and spirits enjoy a double standard protection. So take it to very crucial cases. I could find from the registry of the foreign countries. So these cases I have taken from Canada. So Darjeeling, we know that it is registered for teas, but there I could find Darjeeling bags under class 18 and even class 25. Darjeeling is given for the name is given even for undergarment. And the Metropolitan Darjeeling, Lipton Finest Darjeeling, Indian species, all these names are legally used in foreign countries. And here in these countries, even a community trademark is given, but such things cannot happen with respect to our products, the products that are from the developing or the least developing countries, as the case may be. So such uses are deemed to be legitimate under Article 22 if producers fail to demonstrate public confusion and unfair competition. So this is a stepmotherly treatment, we can say. So there is no legal justification. So that's I told you, even if we go by social, cultural, or political justification, we cannot find any concrete justification. Why this two type of treatment, one treatment for all other products and one special and additional and higher treatment for wines and spirits existing. From 1994, from the day this particular clause was came into existence, the people, there were a lot of debates taking place. Of course, there were a lot of written submissions also given to TRIPS committee to resolve this issue. But as of now, we do not have any concrete thing to show that a certain positive development took place. So this is an international controversy that should be resolved first. Because this particular controversy is not resolved, then it will be very difficult for India to promote its products at the international market, and easily the public can be duped and misled by the so-called legitimate use that takes with respect to our GI. So the challenges that are in front of us are the lack of uniform standards for protection in international IPR laws on GI. So now you could easily understand why I say there is lack of uniform standards, because for wines and spirit there is a higher standard, and for all other products there is a lower standard. And with respect to several Asian countries, including India, the potential of GI is underestimated and less explored. This is a fact. And the registration of our GIs in foreign jurisdictions. I will tell you an example of the Pashmina shawls. I know that all of you are aware of Pashmina shawls. It's very famous, and especially in this winter season, we all love to have a Pashmina shawl, which is very lightweight. And they say that you can even choose it through a ring. That is the beauty of Pashmina. It is so lightweight. So it can be choosed through the ring also. It will be, though it gives you that much warmth, it is so light. And I had an opportunity to listen to the producers of Kashmiri Pashmina, and they were telling that they could register Kashmiri Pashmina in India. Of course, it is again a success story for them. They could enhance their collective bargaining. They could improve their products. But she was talking about the representative who came from Kashmir Pashmina in the talk. She was talking about a particular difficulty. They wanted to register it in United States, but they said that we don't know what is Pashmina. We know Kashmiri shawl. What is known to us is Kashmir, not Pashmina. So if it is Kashmiri shawl, we will register, but Pashmina shawl we cannot register. So they could not get registration in US. So this is an answer. So how will you define this particular aspect? And as a country, how India, or now it is under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and how the Department of the Promotion of Industry and International Trade can handle such issues when the Indian geographical indication is facing difficulty at international level. And the national and the cross-border enforcement. Here also I take the example of Kullu shawl and this Pashmina shawl. Now you can see that in Delhi also and in many border places also, these shawls are easily available. But most of these shawls are coming from Nepal. So the shawls that are coming from Nepal are being sold here as the GI shawls, which is registered in GI by the Pashmina producers or Kullu producers. But they are not actually the genuine sellers, they are not actually the genuine producers, and they are not actually the genuine products. So, what are the measures the government has to do to enforce such issues? And marketing, because as we could see that they are not that much sophisticated people, the marketing itself is a problem for them. How they can find a national market beyond the local level, we have to think. So it is a time wherein we have to think globally, and we have to act locally, and people say you have to act and then you have to think locally and act globally, both the way. Whatever be the ways, okay, we are acting locally, we are producing it, but how you can market it globally, that becomes an important issue. They do not know the training, and they do not have even the capacities and potentialities to gain the international market. So they need the help of the government, or they need the help of the promoters. Uncertain product pricing, because we have examples that even in India, wherein the government could not support them, the middlemen come and purchase, and actually these poor producers, they do not know what is the actual rate, so they are selling it for 1,000 or 2,000 rupees, and a middleman can sell it for more than 10,000 rupees also. It can be with respect to a shawl, it can be with respect to a wood, it can be with respect to a sari, as the case may be. So most of the time, the real producers are genuine producers. The actual producers and artisans are not aware what is the actual price, because they cannot have a direct link with the consumers and the purchasers. So the imitation of products, fake sellers, fake products, and the fake channels. So what sort of mechanism India has developed to ensure the quality, both for the purpose of producers and for the purchasers? So there is a high need to bridge the gap. The authentic product from the authentic producer should reach the last and ultimate consumer. And in that distribution channel, we will be ensuring it. So as way forward, we know that GI per se will not sell the product. Pochampally Ikat again I take as the example. Understand until the government intervened, or till the time the government extended a helping hand to them, they remained poor. There was sheer poverty in every house of the Pochampally Ikat weavers. But when the government gave them financial assistance, when the government established a handloom park, and they took all the initiative to sincerely enter into the weaving, and the government took the duty to even sell the product, then they could earn money, they could become rich people. So there should be need of strengthening the community. And the responsibility of GI holders, of course, that cannot be undermined. I understand that they have the responsibility, but at the same time, the responsibility of the government mechanisms and government agencies, that cannot be undermined. So we can suggest that there should be geographical indication bodies at a local level, even from the panchayat level. Because as I told you, many of the time we have potential GIs in our panchayat, in our village, and we do not know. Look at the Aranmula mirror. It's only in a particular house. The people belonging to a particular family only know how exactly the Aranmula mirror should be made. So we have to identify the potential GIs, and the bodies at local level should be constituted who can give the message at the state level, and then because the registration is given for a particular state, that's why even the state wise you can find list of registered GIs. So when we give the registration, the applicant should be there. There can be no Sumuta award of GI. So the people should initiate from the grassroots level to identify that there should be local bodies, and there should be national GI board to ensure a domestic and international market. Because I told you, otherwise it will be highly difficult to reach the international market, especially when Article 22 and 23 controversy existing. And of course, there can be modern branding. Now you can say that the advertisement, every GI holders cannot afford Amitabh Bachchan and Aishwarya Rai to the brand ambassadors. So the government can take some initiative wherein these great people can freely come as ambassadors. So they have to do, because they also have a duty for national building. They are also citizens. They have taken a lot of things from India. So they also have a duty. So one or two celebrities come forward that of course we will be the ambassadors and we can work freely for it, or by receiving anything that the producers give, we are ready to work for it. If one or two celebrities come like this, that itself will be a motivation for other celebrities also. And so they can take up the responsibility of one or two GIs, and then the advertising function also will be done. Because when we talk about the trademark, it should be advertised. If a mark is not advertised, how the people will come to know? So likewise, GI also should be advertised, not domestically, but also internationally. But since the poor producers cannot afford the advertisement, I think there should be some mechanism that the government finds how the celebrities or ambassadors can be involved to do that. This is my last slide. The government support is very important. As I told you, the Karnataka was the only state wherein an exclusive GI policy was established. I do remember way back, might be in 2008 or something, I was reading somewhere that the Kerala state could propose a traditional knowledge policy. So likewise, every state has taken initiative to have their own policies wherever they found that something is important for them. And with respect to GI, I think every state can find its potentiality. So there is no need to wait for the national government to do much. The state can take initiative, and every state can have their own policies, as in the model of a Karnataka GI policy. They have done it to protect the traditional legacies of Karnataka and to nurture the grassroots artisans of the state. And they have appointed a state nodal officers who travel from place to place to find out the potential GIs. And another mechanism that they have done is they have exclusive GI stores in airport. Because they know that in international airport you receive international passengers. Of course, in COVID time only is an exception for that. Otherwise, the people international airport will be one of the place wherein all foreigners come. So you can at least introduce your product, and you can ensure that whatever you purchase from this state-owned GI pavilion or state-owned GI store, it is going to be the genuine. So as I told you, there are many people who are ready to pay provided you get genuine products. And you can have a spotlight at exhibition. The international exhibition in Delhi is famous. People from every state come, not only to promote their products, even to buy their products. So in such places, we can have the GI exclusive showroom, so that genuine products can be given, and every registered GI owners can be invited. And I may say that even they can be paid by the state government, because otherwise all the expenses are being borne by the state. So, and this is a time wherein we get time to promote our GI. And now we have a lot of startup products, because Make in India is our Prime Minister's one of his dream, Make in India. And also he was very particular that there should be a lot of startups to encourage the small scale industries to come up. So I could find that as one of the startups, some states have come together and they have started this shoppingcart24.com. So this is exclusive, under the startup they have begun it, and it is an exclusive online purchasing website wherein genuine GIs are available. But I do not know whether the all 370 registered GI proprietors are aware about it also. Because I told you they also will be little apprehensive for for e-commerce sale. There should be somebody to support them, because many people have their own apprehensions to enter into this e-commerce sale. So the diligent implementation of GI protection can contribute positively to convert Make in India initiative as successful. And as I told you, India, because India has taken lead internationally as voice of developing countries. Even when you look at the traditional knowledge negotiations, India has led the developing countries. And India has its own voice, because we are the largest democracy in the world. And many times we have our own influence, our own power, and we are the leader of developing countries in that way, we can say. So I think India should take into confidence the other countries also, and ask the leader of these developing countries, we have to take the initiative to speak at international negotiations, wherein we have to say that our products from India also should have this additional protection, or something should be done in that way. So it also, not only the national initiatives, there should be international initiatives, then only our GIs can be promoted and protected internationally. With this, I conclude my presentation. And I thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity. And I am very grateful to all honorable judges, lawyers, and academicians to listen patiently to me.
Thank you, Dr. Lisha. The only highlight I could gather, I mean, it's a new subject to all of us, but still, spiritual issues are taken very seriously internationally. whereas our products are not protected properly. That's what I could understand. I'll go directly over to Justice Ramkumar, sir. So,
Thank you. Excellent presentation and wonderful subject also. For me, it is a novel exposure. In fact, articulating on this, I don't know whether we could have a group registration for Karalkada, Kasavgada dhotis, and Chandrakaran mangoes, which is available only in Cochin area, Tripunithura, Salem mangoes, then what should I say, Talasheri biryani. They are famous for that. And natural stones like Kadapa stones, even firecrackers of Shivagashi, all those things I think we can. There's one other aspect. See, in Thrissur, there is a place called Patalam Road where you get second-hand spare parts, automobile spare parts. It's a center. I don't know whether there could be a group registration for that also. And you made a very emphatic stress on quality. Quality is something which is not adhered to in our country. You go to Broadway, Ernakulam, you will find multi-plugs, switches, lamp holders, sunglasses, all these things available in the pavement, all substandard matters. How could they be sold? Where is the regulatory mechanism in this of the state mechanism? Likewise, recently there is a new trend. Artificial cashew nuts are being sold in packets. They say that it is not cashew at all, but some artificial product. You come across so many such products in vans all along Ernakulam on the road. How could they be sold? Where are our food inspectors? What is our health department doing? Such things. Quality is it's a casualty in India. Some high times our government made some inroads into that. Wonderful, excellent lecture.
thank you, Justice Ramkumar, sir. Over to you, Justice Ramakrishnan, sir.
It's really, as Brother Ramkumar has said, it is a new subject. In fact, on hearing Lisa on the subject, I feel that we will have to think about going back to Gandhian socialism, where promoting cottage industries, because all these GI products are in fact confined to a particular area or particular place or particular community. So in that way, people may not be aware of the existence of such the products at all unless it has been given a wider publicity. One thing. And also, as Ramkumar has said, in fact, even plastic rice are coming mixed with your ordinary rice. We do not know the difference between these things when you are eating it. And you think that it may be it is not properly cooked. So that is the reason why it is hard sometimes. That is a way in which the artificial things are being intermingled with the genuine articles, thereby affecting our health also. So there must be some mechanism for these things to handle. And unless we know about the exploitation of our products in foreign countries, even I think that recently we come across about turmeric being used as a patent has been given to turmeric, which is nowhere connected to the foreign country in which that country has registered the patent, and thereafter we'll have to fight and get back it. So that was the reason why we'll have to have some understanding about how our products are being misused internationally, and some mechanism must be there for the purpose of pointing out those things and grab those products in our name. As Lisa said, that there must be some government initiative must be there for that purpose. And rightly said, these are all community-based products. In fact, either the particular community will be interested in doing it or they are skilled persons, they are doing it. So unless it has been given a wider publicity and such an art is being promoted in an industrial basis or some like that, by providing some employment opportunity for other people also to learn and do it in the same way in which that is being done by the dedicatedly being done by that community people, because that dedication and quality maintenance must be there. Unless otherwise, our name is likely to be spoiled on account of using this GA as a trademark, as in fact. So it is it's a good thing. And government will have to take more initiative for the purpose of providing protection for these people, and see that such things are being projected globally for the purpose of getting just like our tradition being exposed, the articles which are having its own importance, its own quality, has also to be projected as a novel thing for others to follow. Thereby, we are inviting not only the product being sold, but also foreign exchange also can be earned on account of that. So this is the way in which both the central government as well as the state government will have to have a common policy or an interlinking policy between them for the purpose of protecting the interest of GI products. Thank you very much, madam, for the wonderful presentation and also the thought-provoking lecture. Thank you very much. In fact, I will have to congratulate Shyam for the purpose of getting such persons because these are all the new year, because there is no meaning in going on teaching the Evidence Act or CPC, everything, because you are only grinding the same thing with some, the precedents. Instead of that, we will have to go to an area where we are not aware of so many things, and which are also emerging as a better thing for the purpose of the development aspect as far as the Indian economy is also concerned. So thank you very much. I congratulate the organizers for finding out such topics, and that effort must continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Lisa ma'am, we just had a doubt coming up. That is, you said there will be inspections, etc. I mean, sudden inspection or rather without prior notice, etc. Who are these persons who will be doing the inspection?
So these people are being sent from the geographical indication registry in order to inspect the particular place that we have earmarked as the particular area wherein a particular product will be cultivated. Because you have to see this particular specification. We call specification as the heart of geographical indication, because it's only due to that particular attribute, the nature's gift. It can be the soil, it can be the climatic condition, or if it is with respect to a handicraft product, there are few people who know how it should be made, a particular way of weaving, for example, and the particular fabrics that they use. That should be examined how it is different from other products. So with respect to each and every product, geographical indication registry will be identifying these people and they will come for the examination. And this is a compulsory aspect in the registration process itself. If this is not being done, then the registration process itself is not complete. And once it is done and it is found that their specification matches and tallies with the examination report, then only the product will be advertised for registration.
So,
I think you sir can give more insight into this.
May I add to that? In fact, as Ramkumar sir has said, because quality is the soul of this, in fact, this geographical indication, because unless you are able to upkeep or this maintain the quality and this, this that of product, so you can't build up a brand out of this, this geographical indication. So that is a very key to this. So we have a very great example from Europe.
I think there is some
connectivity issue.
No, not only connectivity is also some
developed.
Your face is being covered by.
You're not hearing.
He's trying to hold the phone also. Now it's okay. Yeah, please.
Any piracy issue?
No, because Vodafone issue. Vodafone is. In fact, in Europe, where this geographical indication law is very developed, and it's where it was actually introduced, and it's actually this concept was developed. So where there is this inspection mechanism, which you have asked now, is essential for getting a registration. So there they have this independent inspection bodies. So where they have to certify, then only you will get registration. So that is a very important aspect. So they, that is not under
need not be under the government, but there are some, farmers' body and all those independent, efficiently, their duty they are, discharging very efficiently, because I got a, opportunity to, visit some of those, inspection bodies and their authorities when I was working in the GI registry. So they certify, they inspect, and they independently assess this quality and of these products and this the specification and this production method and all. Then only they will give the certification. But however, unfortunately, in India, we don't have that such a provision under the Act. So here, of course, there is a inspection body, it's a provision for an inspection body, but that need not be an independent body. So inspection body should be provided. The structure of the inspection body should be provided by the applicant himself or applicant itself.
Oh.
So they can constitute, they can give the constitution of the inspection body. Who all should be there. So they can include some experts, as Lisa has said, some experts, or some, if it is an agricultural products, they can take some experts from that area, from, agriculture universities or something like that. But that will not be an independent body, and that is not, in fact, not, functioning very efficiently. But that is actually, that is one of this, change that is required in our Act, because there should be a inspection mechanism, an independent inspection mechanism to maintain or verify and certify the quality of the product. Then only you can build up the brand, and you can the consumers also, can rely on your claims, and that this your products are whatever the quality you are claiming is there, and which is you are maintaining that quality. Then only this consumers trust can be you can build, and then only this brand also can be built up. So that is a very highly required change that is to be, and there are so many that demand is coming there, but we have so many other limitations to introduce that as a in India for some other practical reasons maybe there, but I think eventually that will have to be introduced.
It is just like Biodiversity Act is not being properly introduced and being used. Just like that. Biodiversity Act, there are a lot of provisions where even people may not be knowing about. Even the authorities were not aware as how this will not be implemented, how the beneficiaries will not be benefited by exploiting the biodiversity resources available.
Right, correct.
This is the way in which the GI indications also goes like that only, normally.
Right.
Unless we have quality, we cannot showcase our produce or products.
Exactly. So for the tea board and all, they have a very strong mechanism. So they check their internal, inspection mechanism for Darjeeling and all those tea brands coming under their authority. They do this check, verification and inspection.
Whether our Kannan Devan tea and Assam tea were also geo recognitions are there?
Assam,
no,
there,
actually,
Assam.
Assam tea is there. Assam tea, and then
there.
here Nilgiri tea. Nilgiri tea is there. Then Assam tea, Kangra tea.
Cashew could be one of the items. Cashew.
Yeah, cashew fenny from Goa. The fenny is.
I mean the nut, cashew nut.
Cashew nut, but cashew fenny, I think it's from Goa. That is registered, but not cashew.
But I don't think Kollam district has got a single cashew tree. Even though
they only process.
They are only processing.
Yes.
Just like Surat is famous for diamonds. So they import from South Africa and they process there. But that also is under the Geographical Indication Act. That also is possible. If you have a, have a what you call it's a particular kind of processing of any product in a particular area, that also can be a geographical indication.
Correct. Thank you, Biju. Nima.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, all of you. So it's indeed a pleasure hearing Lisa ma'am again. I've heard her as my faculty when I was in my ILI days. So thank you, ma'am. As usual, you've always been, into the, into the nuances of whatever subject you take. Especially I've seen you as one of the best researcher. So it's my pleasure that I could invite you to this platform through Littles and I
Oh,
could
you are
introduce
the.
ma'am here.
The culprit.
Yes,
Yes, it's only because of Nima I could come here.
Yeah, that's
and
what I
it's
say.
really
I just
surprised
wanted to
me.
mention her specifically,
Yeah.
so I wanted her to say that.
indeed. Yeah. So it's indeed my pleasure again to introduce ma'am here. Thank you so much, Little's platform, because, you're giving a wonderful, what to say, deliberation happening here, new topics discussed. Especially this is one topic which I really wanted ma'am to speak on because hardly we have such good researchers doing, such deep, profound learning on this issue. And especially one thing that, as ma'am said, whatever it is, it's ultimately the beneficiaries who are taking up with the GIs are not benefited out of, the so-called corporates and everything. So I think we should really work on it, the states, and, have to really dwell into that particular point. So again, I'm not lengthening it. Thank you so much, ma'am, and wonderful to hear you again. Thank you.
Let me also, with the permission of the organizers, let me also take a minute to thank everyone. And I was really apprehensive when I came to know that the forum consists of honorable judges and leading lawyers.
No, judges are also learners, madam.
Certainly, but still, we are, though we are teachers, we are students of law, so we have that apprehension every time whenever we go for any class. And yesterday when I saw the invitation, I saw Biju sir's name there. Of course, it was such a solace for me because I remember in 2005 when I started.
That was much surprise in the sense like I could take the liberty with Biju. That's why I took the liberty yesterday.
Yes, because when I initially started teaching IPR, I used to prepare my PPTs and send to Biju sir to see whether it is correct or not. So in that way, he is one of my mentors in the field of intellectual property, right? So his presence itself was such an ardent moral support for me. And Nima, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I'm really grateful to the organizers. I'm very happy to see that it is 154 lecture series. And being organizers of various programs also, I know how difficult to organize even a single lecture. So my great salute to the organizers and the passion that I am finding from the honorable judges and the lawyers. Even after a busy schedule every day, you are still finding time to listen to the youngsters and also to encourage us. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you. As we come to the end of session 154, over to you, Prem.
Well, madam, that is indeed an insightful lecture. And it's only lately we knew that the speaker was suggested by none other than our RBG Nima. And she needs to be thanked for getting us this wonderful speaker. Well, madam, I know nothing about the subject, but out of my curiosity, I just read that Geographical Indications of Goods Registration Protection Act of 1999. And I could see certain penal provisions on. Now in section 52 of that particular statute, which deals with limitation for prosecution, it is seen stated that no prosecution would lie for an offense under this particular statute after the expiry of 3 years next after commission of the offense with which a person is charged, or 2 years after the discovery thereof by the prosecutor, whichever happens first. I could not actually comprehend what exactly is the legislative intent. Could you kindly explain?
Yeah, I have just taken this section. Of course, I have not paid much attention to this, so let me read this first. No prosecution for offence under this act shall be summoned. This is limitation. Of course, for every offence, we have limitation period. No prosecution of offence under this act shall be summoned after the expiration of 3 years, next after the commission of the offence starts, or 2 years after the discovery thereby by the prosecutor, whichever expiration first happens. Vijay said, can you throw light on this? Because as I understand, it is talking about the limitation period. And as every intellectual property, we have limitation period even for corporate, this 3 year period from the date of commitment that you come to know there is a course of action. Within 3 years, you have to move the suit for the infringement. Because as I told you, though I said these are right in perpetuity, we can protect in perpetuity only when we take actions against the infringers. I will connect it with the famous trademark. For example, we know that respirator was one of the famous trademarks. Aspirin was one of the famous trademarks. And But because they did not take any action against the infringement, it becomes generic. So the mark became generic and they lost the intellectual property rights in that because you have to immediately take. And when we take the example of a photostat, we can the Xerox machine was about to use its trademark because people used to say, even we say, I am going to Xerox. We used it as a synonym for photocopy. Sometimes by forgetting that Xerox is a trademark. So then they started giving public notices. Xerox is a trademark. It cannot be misused for photocopy. So then by giving the public advertisement, they could retain the intellectual property in that they did not allow it to dilute or become a generic trade. So here you have to be very vigilant and you have to be very prudent where your mark is being infringed or passed off. And if your mark is infringed, then you have to take immediate action. Within 3 years, you have to bring the matter to the court. Otherwise, the limitation period is lapsed.
So 3 years is the outer period, is it not? 3 years is the outer limit.
Outer limit.
If
I
the
think it's the
3 years outer limit.
prosecutor discovers it within 2 years, that will be the outer limit. Is it not?
But actually, the term would be
It is not public prosecutor. It is not public prosecutor. The person who prosecutes.
Person who prosecutes.
Yeah, correct. That is
Complainant.
Complainant.
complaint.
It's a wrong usage. Maybe, I don't know.
No,
2 years. Yes,
probably I think that it is only a complaint case normally.
Complaint case. Yes.
It's
So
a
2 years
complaint
is the.
Yeah, to give more clarity, may I ask Vijay Thomas to intervene because he can be the final decision maker in this aspect. I think.
Because he was in the enforcement area also.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean,
we know more about theory part, but practical aspect, I think we have expert here. Vijay, can you just tell us about this?
No, in fact, this is, I mean, this, I mean, Sarah said this 2 years limit because I in fact, to be honest, I don't know the reason why this 2 years limit was introduced. But 3 years, actually, the outer limit is now 2 years. But
because the confusion, much confusion is there only because, see, you have a provision for taking cognizance. Taking cognizance is provided under section 50, which says it is only on the complaint of the registrar, which is made either under, I mean, for offenses under 43 to 40, 42 to 44. I think so.
Yeah. So that 50, because the 50 says that in case you want to file a police complaint on a, I mean, of a, I mean, GI infringement, you need to, and your trademark, I mean, your GI is registered, then you need to get a permission from the registrar. So you need means you through the DYS. I mean, Deputy Superintendent of Police is the. I mean, only the Deputy Superintendent. You can file the complaint only with the Deputy Superintendent of Police. And
No,
the police after receiving your complaint, he should obtain the permission from the registrar. So this is the same as the case with the trademark. I mean, act also. So before initiating a police action or taking this action on a police complaint, the police officer should get a permission from the registrar, saying that yes, this person is rightful owner. So that is the normal opinion that the registrar gives, whether this person has a legal right over this GI or the trademark in that case. So then only he can initiate. Actually, that is a, in fact, it is an impediment. It is an unwanted provision introduced in the Act. So there are a lot of demands from the stakeholders to remove this particular provision. So the why should the police officer? Because if you can show a certificate, registration certificate, or
and it will entail delay also.
Exactly. From the government, actually, it is an unwanted provision introduced in under both the Trademark Act and the GI Act. So then,
Viju, the thing is that it's not the permission. Section 50.
Opinion. Permission, opinion. Sorry.
Let me tell you. 50 consists of two parts. One deals with sections 39 to 41. The other part deals with 42 to 44. 42 to 44 is contemplated in section 50 clause 1, which would say that court cannot take cognizance of an offense under section 42, 43 or 44 except on a complaint in writing made by the registrar, because the registrar should be the complainant or any officer is authorized.
So that is a different case, Prem. Yeah, that is actually if in case I am I mean, representing a geographical indication which is actually not registered as a registered GI. Suppose, take some geographical indication which is not registered or even applied for. So
Okay,
then, but I am advertising it as registered, because then in such cases, the complainant should be the registrar. Only those are the offenses which are dealt with in this section. So in such cases, only registrar can be the complainant. Only upon his complaint, only the action can be taken.
Because
so if penalty for falsely representing a geographical as registered, so that is 42, section 42.
But the clause 1B alone is the other issue. 1B means it should be accompanied by a certificate from the registrar. 1B of 42.
Yeah.
From 42 to 44, only 42B1, 1B. That alone needs a certificate by the registrar. And kindly see 50 clause 3. It's a cognizable offense. All three offenses are cognizable.
Not all. Only 3 sections: 39, 40, and 41.
Altogether, only there are 6 penal sections.
Yeah.
39 to 44. Of which the first 3 is cognizable. Regarding the last 3, the complainant should be the registrar, except in 42 1B, which is seen as a proviso to 50 clause 1. So, if it is a registrar, then who is the prosecutor? Because that admits of much confusion. That is why the wording.
It is non-cognizable. 42. 42 is non-cognizable.
Absolutely true. Only for 39, 40, and 41 are cognizable. But regarding limitation under 52, if the complainant is the prosecutor, then suppose a person asks for a permission to the registrar, then automatically registrar becomes a complainant. In such a case, doesn't that what the particular terminology of 52?
And what do they mean by no prosecution shall be commenced?
Exactly. And kindly see the offense with which he is charged. 52 says limitation. Kindly see the word used. Next after commission of the offense charged. It cannot be like that. Once the prosecution is about to begin, there is no question of charging with an offense. That comes much later. I think this was a hurried legislation pursuant to that.
Actually, there are. Yes. In fact, there are so many. Issues with the act. Actually, this act was drafted with a lot of trademark flavor, because it's you can see that if you compare it with the Trademark Act, there are so many provisions were taken as a. As it is from the Trademark Act. In fact, in many other, jurisdictions, they have. This geographical indications given as different types of treatment. It is unlike trademark. Here in India, it is mostly of. You can, if you go through this, or if you compare this act with the Trademark Act, so there are so many act and provisions taken straight away from there, and which are not, relevant or squarely applicable in this geographical indications as such. So, and there are so many other this kind of confusions there in the act, and now the government is in the process of, I think, revising this act. I think in the one even Lisa was in a member of that committee which was constituted by the government to revise the act.
I would like to talk about this. This committee was constituted in 2010, and we could work for almost 3 years. So 3 years sounds to be such a long period. Of course, the committee could have only 4 or 5 meetings. And
some distraction.
Sound.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
So the committee was constituted in the year 2010, and we could have only 3 or 5 meetings till 2013 or 2014 as the case may be. And of course, by section we were going, and of course we were also receiving public opinion. And there were so many demands from the public. The first one was the intricacies involved to get themselves registered as a registered proprietor. So sometimes even there are threats that some proprietors face from this organization also. They have to sometimes even pay money to the organization. And of course, we were also surprised when we heard about all these things. In order to get themselves registered, of course, there is no transparent procedure. Sometimes they have to even go to the collector to convince that we are entitled to become a registered proprietor. So they wanted to easen the procedure, lessen the burden of showing all this to get themselves registered as registered proprietor. Then even the keyboard wanted that should be assignable. So now the geographication is not assignable at all. So I think it is only one kind of intellectual property where you cannot assign it now. So yes, there are certain properties wherein they demand that even the assignability part should be taken care of. So there were a lot of issues that the committee took up. But meanwhile, the new policy came in the year 2016, and afterwards the committee never sat. And one of the members was Honorable Judge Pratibha Singh, and she became judge of the High Court. And what happened to the committee, whether a new committee was constituted after the new government, I am not aware of it now.
Right.
Anyway, thank you so much, madam. That is an excellent articulation, as Ramkumar sir said. It was brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prem. Thank you, Dr. Lisa P. Lucas, for that wonderful exposition of the geographical indications. And Biju, it is always wonderful to hear you. It's really wonderful to have you on this platform, because we had on an earlier occasion, we thought of having you as a speaker, but somehow it didn't work through. Anyway, this time as a guest you come, you will come as a speaker also. I think that's the best way of inviting you straight away. So thank you very much for the wonderful topic and the way in which it was dealt exhaustively, and it was an eye-opener for all of us. And thank you, Justice Ramkumar sir and Justice Ramakrishnan sir, for your valuable presence and inputs. And Nima, thank you again. And I would say that we would like to have more speakers, so we'll keep on thanking you. Give us the occasion to do that. Thank you very much. So
Even Lisa can identify new speakers also of varieties. Of varieties and introduce.
Absolutely.
It's not necessarily
lot of academicians having research oriented thought may be available, just like our doctor.
and need
Dr.
not
Kaul.
necessarily confined to law only.
Certainly, because being Delhi the intellectual capital of the country, of course we know each other. So the JNU is here, Delhi University is here, and not only the academicians, and there are a lot of lawyer academicians and judges academicians also who usually take keen interest in all these activities. So definitely I will be sharing names with
No, because everything connected with the law only, because you can't have any subject without a law.
Yes,
Everything is connected with the law. So mostly we are not aware of the laws. That maybe we are ignorant about the existence of most of the laws.
Next time Ramkumar sir goes to get the mangoes, he'll think of geographical indication.
Definitely. Particularly Chandrakaran. That is my weakness.
It has been a wonderful Friday evening, well spent. Yes, Prem?
No, Ramkumar sir.
Yes.
Actually, Nima has been invited for a webinar from the Harvard University next week.
My goodness. What? How blessed are they?
great thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good.
Platform, enriched by persons' thoughts and ideas. The name itself, legal empowerment through interaction. If we can interact with all these wonderful persons, I'm sure that even I may become wiser. Thank you very much. So let's all meet again tomorrow. And Prem? Tomorrow evening, I'll call you after some Prem. We'll have a discussion on it. Okay.
Okay.
Have you got the speaker tomorrow?
No, not yet, sir. We were just we are running behind, and we are supposed to get a confirmation within the next half an hour. I'm sure that. Thank you very much. So till we meet again tomorrow, please do take care, stay safe, and see to that all our national pride, the national indications, geographical indications are protected, preserved, so that we have a very good grassroots level empowerment from all the stakeholders.
Although many of us are geographically challenged.
That of course, let us find our roots through these geographical indications. Thank you very much.